I'm back! Did you miss me? Well, anyway, even if you didn't, I'm back. And the next review we have is The Wolf of Wall Street. And that is a reteaming of Leonardo Dicaprio and Martin Scorsese. And it's a film about drugs and sex and debauchery in the 80s financial world. It's based on a true story. And there's a lot of partying and sex and stuff in it. So leave the kids at home. Apparently Leo has some sort of a raunchy scene in it, and he didn't use a body double. So I'm kind of curious to see what that looks like. I'm excited.
What was so refreshing about the way he wrote this novel was his absolute candid honesty about every tumultuous, radical endeavor that he went through, and he held nothing back. He pulled no punches. And I think whenever you're presented with an opportunity to do a movie, you look for that kind of honesty in a lead character and a storyline. And he was unapologetic about his actions and about his lust for wealth and his lust for consuming everything around him. And that's just a basis for a great character and a great story. And also, of course, the fact that he ultimately had to pay the price is really something that makes for a great movie. Originally, we got the screenplay, I just fell in love with this character. I really wanted to do this movie, and Scorsese was very much interested in doing the project. We had just finished Shutter Island. We were trying to set the film up, but the financing fell through, and he went on to go do another project and was about to do another one, and I was trying to move on with another director, but I just couldn't get Scorsese out of my mind for this material, because there's something that we've seen in his work wherein he's able to bring out a life in these characters, a reality, and a sense of humor to that dark side, which is so apparent in this movie, which very, very few filmmakers can accomplish. So I couldn't get him doing this specific material out of my mind. And Terry Winter's script had so much humor in it, and in a lot of ways I remember him telling me about Goodfellas being almost a dark comedy. That was his original intent with that film, and this lent itself to that that style of filmmaking. So I reapproached him and I said, look, we have these great partners in Red Granite with Joey and Reza, who are not only financiers but collaborators, and they essentially, they want to give us free rein to explore that dark side and not do a sort of G-rated version of this movie, and they want to, give us the budget to sort of show the epic expanse of this world in the 90s in America. And this is one of those rare times in our careers where we're going to be able to do what we want. And I'd encourage you, to try to take another shot at looking at this. And so he did, and luckily we got to make the movie. And it is one of those rare experiences where, the artists get really free creative control of what they did, and that was the attitude of making this movie. And I wish more movies were like that. Well, that's always the big question that you have going into a movie, whether you feel audiences will be responsive to people committing atrocious acts. And it all depends on not only the subject matter, but I think the honesty in the way you depict these people. And that was one of the things that Marty said very early on. He's like, through my experiences in making movies, if you're authentic with the characters and who they are and don't betray that, people will go along with anything. And that stuck with me. And it's true for, so many great, character studies that we've seen in the past. As long as they ring true and they're authentic, you'll go on any journey with them. Some of the greatest characters of all time have all been pretty tumultuous, horrible people. And what surprised us about making this movie was, I think there's a huge distaste in America, and certainly around the world, for, Wall Street and corporate America after what's recently gone on in our economy. And would people be attracted to going on a journey with these characters, sort of running wild with America's money in their hand. And what was surprising is the fact that you can't help but not necessarily root for these guys, but want to watch them disintegrate. You want to watch these guys that have a complete disregard for anyone or anything except themselves and their own lust for greed. And it's ironic, but it's incredibly entertaining. It's one of those rare opportunities where we got to really improvise and do something that we thought was very much of our generation. This was not classic material. This wasn't an iconic piece of American literature. This was one man's account of a very insane time in recent history. So all those cultural references were there, all those things that we identified with and could understand that were happening right now, we got to put up on film. One of the references that I had was, Caligula, the film Caligula. It was a massive orgy of wealth and drugs and a group of people that really wanted to, succeed at any cost. But there have been films in the past like Boiler Room or Wall Street, but this had this sort of a sense of humor that I don't think had ever been put up on film before. And our approach was to be very improvisational. I think all of us wanted to connect with our characters, do as much research as we possibly could. I got the opportunity to meet with Jordan Belfort himself, hear the first account of a lot of these stories and what went on. And then there was a massive, rehearsal period. There was a lot of improvisation there, and we just kind of integrated all that rehearsal into the filmmaking process. We had reference points of where we wanted scenes to go, but it was incredibly loose. It was like a theater company of guys coming in and playing around with the material. And there would be a lot of sequences that were only a page long, and we'd be improvising for hours and hours. And when you have the great actors that I got to act alongside, anything can happen on that day, and a lot of times it did. What's going to be surprising is the humor, the dark humor of this movie, but no Scorsese movie is ever going to not have that dark side too, and the exploration into the depths of who these people are and the unraveling of those characters. Our attitude, like I said, was simply let's really pull no punches. Let's not try to whitewash anything. Let's not try to make these characters quote unquote likable. Let's portray them for what they are, and that means also exploring the unbelievable time that they did have during those few years where they were completely unregulated and had no rules. Ultimately, they pay the price, and everything comes crashing down in a flaming, pile of rubble. But, let's be honest about what they were doing, and they were having an insanely good time. Jonah in particular is, not only just a great guy and was so incredibly excited to be there and so chomping at the bit to play this character. I mean, one of the earliest conversations I had with him was before he even got cast, and he looked at me and he said, this was the role that I was meant to play. This character, speaks to me. I know these people, I've seen this world, and I am the man to play that character. And when an actor has that kind of passion, you immediately want to let the director know that there's somebody out there that wants to throw everything into it. And Scorsese met him and immediately hired him after that. And his attitude throughout was, look, I want to be your wingman in this endeavor. I want to go out there and support you and support Marty and show the essence and true life of these characters and this man in particular. It was an amazing experience for all of us because, I've traditionally worked on a lot of movies that, have a very specific plot structure, and there's so many different moving parts that ultimately need to happen to culminate in an ending. And this was a much different experience. And so somebody like Jonah for all of us was just a electrifying force that ignited each scene every single day. And I'm very thankful that he did that for us on this film. There will be moments in this movie where people will be shocked and appalled by some of the activity, but you get wrapped up in this world, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring people, into a time period that was wild and rampant, without regulations and without rules, and envelop you in that world to the point where you almost become desensitized to the debauchery. And I think we accomplished that. I don't think that movies are necessarily there to tell, a moral tale. They're there to depict people, and as close to, not even as close to reality as they possibly are, but as authentically as you can. And to me, those are the films that I want to watch, the films that I think about, the films that resonate through the years. And those are, those are the movies that live on for hundreds of years, in my opinion. You have to, not go into the process thinking that I'm going to teach these people a lesson. I think people are see that as transparent. Ultimately, go into a certain endeavor or filmmaking process, you're not very flexible for what is yet to come. And this is one of the examples of a group of artists getting together and saying, let's see what happens when we're on set. Let's come incredibly prepared, but let's see what magic happens while we're there. And to me, there's so many memorable sequences in this movie that may even take a while to resonate with people. Like I said, I think audiences are very desensitized to a lot of things that they see up on screen, but I think there's something about the way Marty allowed us to play that people are going to really remember this movie.